Welcome to another episode of the Terry and Frank Show. I hope you've been tuning in. We've had absolutely some great series. People Unproductive was very, very interesting. We did the Belonging for Everyone, a great series starting with what belonging actually is. And we went through all the factors that drive it. And now we're getting into the human factors of leadership. This is going to be a little different, a little more fun, I think. We're not going to tell you exactly what the topics are. We're covering two things today, two human factors of leadership. We're going to use some videos as learning aids, which I think you'll really enjoy. They're pretty cool. And we'll get right into it, right, Terry? So you
Yes.
may not know Terry. I'm assuming you do, that you're a regular listener to what we do. But hi, I'm Frank Wander. I'm the founder of People Productive. We create companies where the people and company thrive together. Tara?
Yes, and I'm Terry Mays. I'm a certified culture engineer who helps companies focus on the human side of business to bring increased value to that organization.
Excellent. So look, maybe we'll get right into this. Let me pull up.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
So while Frank is bringing that up, we want you to remember to smack that bell and subscribe and share. We've got a lot of great content out here. There's a lot of good information. We did a whole series on the people unproductive.
Right.
So go back and watch some of the old episodes and share it and like it. Subscribe to our channel. We'd love to have you join in on the conversation.
You're absolutely right. Please smack the bell and subscribe. You're going to love some of this stuff. Let's get right into it. Recently, we videotaped it with new monkeys who had never done the task, thinking that maybe they would have a stronger reaction, and that turned out to be right. The one on the left is a monkey who gets cucumber. The one on the right is the one who gets grapes. The one who gets cucumber, note that the first piece of cucumber is perfectly fine. The first piece she eats. Then she sees the other one getting grape, and you will see what happens. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber. Wow. So what happened? I think we should give the audience a second to think about this, right? Something happened there that matters to leadership.
Yes, absolutely.
Very fundamental. Very fundamental. Think for a minute. Why would that matter? We have capuchin monkeys. They're being fed food. So, Ter, what do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely about that equality and fairness, right? So
Yep.
they're being fed different foods. They're doing the same task, but getting different rewards. And how many times have we seen that play out in the workplace?
Oh my God.
We're working side by side. We're both doing the exact same job, but a male will get paid more than the female. And there's no difference in the work, the quality of work. It's not about that. We're saying that in those cases where people are doing the same job, they really should be paid the same. And even monkeys know that that's not fair. So that's a funny way to see it displayed out.
Yeah, it says that, social animals are wired for fairness because if they weren't wired for fairness and on the lookout for it, this is a threat to their survival. So this is fundamental to their survival. And you have to create an environment that is fair, where people are treated equally. And if they perform unequally, hey, that's a different story. But if they're
Right.
performing equally, look, they've got to be taken care of equally.
Right.
And
Right.
otherwise,
And you
you're,
know what happens too? You saw how the monkey threw the cucumber back.
yeah,
That's what starts to happen in the workplace. People get frustrated with that and they start pushing back on the work, right? They start pushing back and making a big scene. In some cases, people make a scene about it and they really dislike that. And that dislike will come out in different ways in the workplace.
they are wired for it. So these emotions are going to well up inside of them. And it's
Yes.
going to happen. And actually, as leaders, you're creating it if it happens. You made this happen. You want to avoid this. You should understand how, the human infrastructure works and operates. You know all your processes. You know, you've learned your technology, you've learned whatever you do, and you need to know and understand how the human side works, especially if you've been given all of these expensive people. You got to,
That's right.
right? Because this is about the most effective use of the talent. How could you ever use talent effectively if you don't know and understand this? This is vital. This is level 2 of Maslow. This is a threat to their very safety and survival. And that's
Right.
it's hardwired.
Yeah. And it kind of speaks to that one person that's not being paid fairly. It makes them feel devalued. And that's not a place you want people to be in, where they feel like what they do doesn't really matter, that they're not as important. You want people to feel like they're valued and that their work is meaningful, that it matters. So you don't want to push them in a way that causes them to run away. You don't want them to retreat. You don't want them to have these explosive responses in the workplace. You want people to feel like, hey, this place treats me fairly and I earn an honest wage for the work that I'm doing. And everybody is earning an honest wage for the work that they're doing, and that it's not based on nepotism or any kind of buddy system where this person is being paid more because they have connections or because of their gender or any other thing. You want to make sure that people feel like there is fairness and equality no matter what. However, the benefits are, is how they are for everybody.
And this goes way beyond the money. This is,
Yes,
they're about who really gets the good assignments.
yes,
It's about who's getting promoted. This is about rewarding people based on what they did and not making sure some buddy of yours is getting this new cool thing to do.
that's
Uh,
right.
really rewarding the person who earned it by doing the best work, putting in the hardest effort. So you got to know your people. You got to be absolutely objective. You got to be fair. And you should be able to tell anybody so and so got this for the following reasons, right? You should have no problem sharing why, because you should understand why that particular individual got it. And people should know where they stand. If somebody thinks they should have been promoted, maybe you didn't give them feedback along the way and you've been just telling them, hey, you're great, keep it up. And you've been just weak leader, not being candid, giving honest, sincere feedback to them.
Right.
Lots of things go wrong, right, Tara?
That's right. And a lot of times people think that these things happen behind the scenes and that nobody knows, but these always have a way of coming up to the surface. So as a leader, you really do want to do things in a way that speak to fairness and equality because eventually it's going to come out. People talk about things that they shouldn't talk about at work, the whole taboo of don't talk about your pay or your benefits. It's just changing. Things are changing. I've listened to my sons talk about the discussions they've had at work about pay, where they openly talked about it. And I went, oh my God, I can't believe they talk about that at work. That there's this group of them that
Oh, right. Oh,
conversation
salaries.
very openly. But things have changed. Things are not the same anymore where it's just okay for women to be treated differently or to be paid less than men. And so this next generation that's coming up, they are really not afraid to challenge those norms.
Yeah. So, and in reality, these are underlying human emotional needs. And, you're going to say, hey, they're on the lookout for this. No, their subconscious is on the lookout for it. They're going to weave that picture together. Even if they're not consciously doing it, it's going to pop into consciousness that, oh, something unfair happened. Because the subconscious
Right,
is taking in everything, even though you consciously are aware of a small percentage of what's going on. Subconscious is just sucking it all in and saying, hey, boop, be aware of this.
yes,
So that's
yes,
wiring.
absolutely.
It's an alert system, right?
Yeah,
The limbic system is a threat sensor. That's a threat to you ultimately, that your future may not be as good as others there, and perhaps you should move on if this isn't addressed.
right. And it goes back to that feeling. We talked about those feelings that you get being in a work environment. It's like that sensing you get that something is just not right. Something is a little bit off here. Something is different.
Something is different. So hey, let's move on since we're having fun with this topic. Let's move on to the next little video. And as we play this, what we want you to do is think about why this matters, because there's science behind every bit of this. So I'm going into the share.
If we want to make the vision for Lisa a reality, we got to put in the hours and make something great.
Yeah, but we have a hard date on this software, and I'm sorry, but adding pretty fonts is not going to change that. Bill?
If you don't share our enthusiasm and care for the vision of this company.
No. I'm not understanding.
Get out.
What?
Get your shit and get out. You're done.
What are you gonna fire me?
No! I already fired you! Why are you still here?
Steve, he was our best programmer in the division.
He's the best programmer that doesn't care about our vision.
So what happened other than Steve Jobs going crazy in a meeting?
Yeah, very explosive.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I haven't seen too much of that. I've seen some crazy stuff go down. That's really intense.
Yeah.
That is insane. I've been in meetings where they said, blow them up. Without the person there, right? Blow them up. Crazy stuff. But, you know, I haven't seen anybody get that crazy.
Yeah. It's very explosive and very intimidating, right? So he's very passionate about what he's working on, but the display and the way that it's coming out is really not healthy, right? So it's very the person is very fearful, the environment is very unstable. You notice the guy that's just looking around like, don't bring me into that, I don't want to be a part of this. You know, they're just afraid, and they want to run away from Steve Jobs at this point.
Oh, totally afraid. Totally afraid.
Yeah, you don't want to lead that way where people feel like their voice can't be heard. So they're trying to bring something to his attention and he doesn't want to hear it.
Right.
They say, dismissing them, saying, I don't care what you're saying, everything is urgent, get it done. And so we are always in those situations where you have to balance out the human with the task.
Mhm.
So the task cannot run the organization. You can't be so task focused that you forget about the people that are actually doing the task. So you've got to have a balance in that. And it's true, you get to the end of the project or you're going to implementation, it's go live day, you know, close to go live day, and you're trying to get as much as you can done. But at some point, you have to balance that out with the people. You can't forget about the human factor, and you can't just stay so focused on the task that you forget that there are people behind this, and these people have feelings and emotions, and they should be respected and valued. So, you know, although I think Steve had a great point, you know, there was a great point to him saying everybody should have the same passion for the vision of this company and the direction that we're going in. There's a lot of focus on that right now for companies and for employees to know the vision and to understand how what they're doing fits into the overall goals and missions for the company, and how, you know, that bigger picture comes into play. But you cannot do it at the expense of safety. You cannot have people buy into the vision of the company at the expense of their psychological safety.
Yeah, and there are many factors that influence that feeling of being safe in an environment. Level 2 of Maslow, everything happens above that. And
Yes.
you know, the shame here is that guy cared deeply about the dates and getting it done. So he's been told, obviously, that we can't miss the date. So he's trying to, in his own mind, reconcile this to the date that he's been told is very important. He's trying to be a good soldier. He's bringing it up, raising a point. And what Steve Jobs has done is more or less guarantee that he will never get feedback on important things from the people again, because they
Right.
don't want to be chewed up in front of everybody or have their career and, you know, livelihood threatened. And you're right, that other guy, he's he he sees what's happening and he understands that this guy is heading into the meat grinder. He could see it.
Right. Exactly.
He's upset about it and he brings it up after it's happened. just to let Steve know he was the best guy. And Steve should have looked in the mirror. If they don't understand why those fonts are so important to the launch and why are they not passionate about it, he has not been able to communicate that vision right.
Right,
Get them excited. He didn't create meaning for them.
right, exactly.
It's on him.
It's a balance, and that leader is the one that is creating that environment, whether it be one that's full of safety, psychological safety, where people feel like they can actually bring their opinions to the table, that they can be heard, that they have a voice, when instead of having that feeling of shame, like the video that we just saw where the guy just felt a bunch of shame and was dismissed as if his ideas and his thoughts didn't matter at all. We cannot have those types of environments. So it's the leader that totally sets the tone for that. It is absolutely on leadership to
Well,
make sure that people's voices can be heard and that they're not embarrassed in front of the entire group, just to fire him that way and then to be so crass about it, just so nonchalant that, the guy saying, "Are you going to fire me?" He's like, "I already did." Like,
yeah,
get away. You're like, "Who are you? Why are you still here?"
yeah, crazy. What an
Yeah,
intense scene. And he should have said, wow, I think I have failed to communicate this importance of this. Let's see how
right.
we work all this in. I love the fact you're passionate about the deadline. You're aces. You're one of our best guys. What do you think we could do to fit some of this in?
Yeah,
And the dialogue and own the fact that if they don't get it and they're not all heading in the same direction, it's your fault. You should have owned it right there. You
right.
brought something to my attention. I thought I had communicated this and everybody got it, but I blew it. So I need your help here. He
Yeah,
could have really handled this in a great way
right,
and achieved a much better outcome. And,
right.
uh, everybody says, oh, listen, it's, look what he created. It's incredible. And look, the guy was amazing. But you're not going to try to go find a Steve Jobs to go run your company. They're just not around. And there's incredible wreckage behind some of these people. You could watch videos of people. There are a lot of people had not nice things to say about Steve.
Yeah,
At what price?
right. You cannot have success at the price of psychological safety.
Yeah. So let's
It's,
define psychological safety for the folks since we're talking about it. Right?
let's do
Psychological
that.
safety is, go on. Why don't you take a crack and then,
In a place where there's psychological safety, it's almost inherent. So the mind has to be at rest in that environment.
yeah,
There's no need, you don't have that fight or flight feeling that happens when you feel like you're being confronted or bombarded or attacked in any way. So that environment is one that's stable. You feel like you can share and you're not going to be retaliated against. Nobody's going to hold it over your head or hold it against you when you share your thoughts and your opinions. It's an environment that's not necessarily conflict free, because conflict in and of itself isn't a bad thing. That just means that people see things differently. But you're able to address each other in a positive, healthy way, in a way that encourages dialogue as opposed to shutting people down. So you want that environment where people feel safe, where they feel like they can be themselves, they can be authentically them, and they can share their feelings openly. They can share what they think, even going beyond just
yeah,
feelings, what they think, their opinions, how they think things should be done. All of those things are important to people. They really do have to feel like their voice is being heard, because there's always going to be a difference of opinion.
yeah,
There's always going to be somebody that sees things differently. But how do you handle that? Is it a lot of yelling and screaming and cursing and, people having these loud outbursts? Or do we sit down and have an intelligent conversation together? Are we able to work through things without having to be so loud and yelling at each other? That really does not bring things to conclusions. So
no.
all of those good parts of psychological safety at work.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, psychological safety is creating work as a safe space for people to speak up and share what's on their mind. And if you have a culture where, you know, people are vulnerable with one another, there's a lot of candor, that's great. I remember a famous quote, that, you know, an organization without, conflict and disagreement isn't one in harmony, it's one in apathy, which I think is true. Nobody gives a crap. They're not going to speak up and say stuff, right? You need that disagreement, but when you're respectful for one another, it can be done in a very civil, nice way, and people can speak up and disagree and take the conversation to a whole new level where everybody learns some stuff.
Right.
What want to do?
That conflict and disagreement is necessary so that you can see a different perspective. Because if everybody agrees with you all the time, then there's nothing new to learn, there's nothing new to see.
Yeah.
But once you start hearing somebody's opinion and it's different than yours, it causes you to think bigger and to think outside of your box of what you have deemed to be the gospel truth. Whatever you have decided this is the way it should be, and then somebody shows you something else and it causes you to come out of that box, and you always learn something different. That still doesn't mean that you agree. That just means that I'm open. I will listen to what the other person has to say. I will try as best as I can to see their perspective. So I still may not agree with your perspective, but it's your perspective and you're entitled, you deserve the respect of me allowing you to be who you are and not trying to constantly transform you into this robot that just does whatever I say do. Now,
Yep.
no leadership should want people that follow them that way because it's really not a healthy way. After a while, people are going to get tired of that and they're going to leave. They're going to move on to something else.
They're not being themselves. I mean, they're not able to share a piece of themselves at these meetings, right? If they're just following, going along. So
Right.
not a healthy environment. So let's take a look then at some of the factors that do create an unsafe environment. And this is important. Let's see. Here, lack of safety,
Yeah.
blame, lack of transparency, hidden agendas, deceit, fear, trustworthiness. Let's look at this. Let's analyze what Steve did, right?
Right.
Blame. He's blaming him right away that, you're not buying in to the vision. Immediately starts off with blame, creates tons of fear. He's a very untrustworthy person in that regard because you can't speak up around him. You don't know what Steve's showing up.
Right.
Maybe it's always the same Steve that's going to do that. You're being punished right away, publicly embarrassed and marauded, steamrolled.
Right.
He remained in the company. He'd probably ostracize him for that. When you think
Yes.
you would,
And in a way, he ostracized him by making him leave. He
yeah,
like banished him from the island, he cast him off the island, or, like put his lamp out, that kind of thing. But it's definitely no way to instill a sense of belonging or caring at all. There was no caring in how he responded to this man.
zero caring. Other people are now feel no warmth from the guy at all, no
Yeah.
sense of caring. They're going to be fearful around him.
No respect. He did not respect that man at all. Not
Zero,
in the least.
didn't respect all of his contributions.
Right.
Like the fact the guy cared about the end date. I mean, that's just awful, right?
Right. And just respect for him as a person,
Yeah,
to just speak to the person the way you would like them to speak to you. So if somebody was talking to him that way, I don't think he would have liked that very much. None
and
of us like to be spoken to that way.
I'll tell you what, if he just made that angry face and never said anything, that's emotional aggression. That's all he would have had.
Exactly.
That's all he would have had to do. That happens all the time, right? There's a lot of things that go unsaid. They're just facial expressions that are very emotionally aggressive, and you could feel it.
Right. You can absolutely feel that energy in the room, that aggression, that anger,
Yeah,
frustration. It's all over his face. He's totally disgusted with the guy.
totally, totally.
Even in tone of voice, his tone of voice had this very um, almost tragic sounding voice. Just like something really bad is about to happen. It's like in the movies when they start playing really slow, dark music. You know that somebody's about to die in this movie. That's kind of the feeling you get watching him talk, just listening to him.
Oh,
He
yeah.
sounds like, oh yeah, somebody's about to die.
Oh, no doubt about it, you know?
Yeah.
So, those are two really good topics for the human factors of leadership. A lot of this is subtle, right? You need to be able
Yes.
to give people that room and that space to speak up. You have to invite them into the room if they're not speaking up. It's got to be a totally safe space. If someone
Yes.
brings up something you don't like, find a way to own it. It's probably on you, right? And if they're doing any of these things that you see on that list, being one of the people unproductive, then you've got to intervene and say, we don't do that here. And let me tell
Right.
you why that's not really accepted around here. So you would have
Yes.
norms to stop all of this if you had a good culture. It wouldn't be happening. It'd be confronted immediately.
Right. That's exactly it. You know, ruling with an iron fist will only get you so far. You will have to become passionate about the work, but also passionate about caring for the people.
Air
There
pack.
has to be a balance. Otherwise, things are not going to be as successful as they could be, and people are not going to thrive in that organization.
Mhm. Yeah, that's right. Not many people could be Steve Jobs and pull it off. Most of them crash and burn.
Right.
Toxic leaders, I followed a lot of them. They crashed and burned. Nothing got done. Through the sheer will he had, even though he could do that, he got people to follow him because there was huge rewards at the end of the rainbow. They're willing to sacrifice their life for the money, I guess, right? Because
Yes.
the one thing Steve Jobs had more than anybody, and I've talked about this in talks I've given, was strategic trust that you're going to be very well off in the future, right? He had that track record. So people are worried about their safety today and tomorrow, right? Into the future. So he had such a strong sense of strategic trust that people willing to sacrifice something in the present to get it. And I believe that's why that worked. Not many people could pull that off. That's a balancing act that is earned with this huge reputation. So no, you can't be him because you're not him. It's not going to work.
Right. Right. And this, I think, is kind of a flaw of being a visionary. People don't always see things what you see, the way you see it, because you're seeing something that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah,
But you have to still have some way of helping people come to the place where you are without that bullying and intimidation factor.
that's right.
Because you want people to be in that visionary space. In order to be in that space, you have to be free to have independent thought and
Yeah,
to be able to be creative. And having a bully as a boss does not lead you to a place where you feel creative and you feel free to share your thoughts and ideas.
that's right. 100%. So I think this is great. Now,
Yeah.
please smack the bell and subscribe. We got great topics coming. We're going to be playing some cool videos along the way talking about it. You're going to learn a lot. Um, we're not going to tell you what the next human factors are because it ruins the whole thing. There's no
Yeah,
surprise. Tune in for the surprise.
that's right.
What we're going to cover, and we'll reveal the answers each time as the show moves on.
Yes. But they'll all be human factors of leadership. So you can think in that mindset of what's most important from a human perspective when it comes to leadership.
That's right. You can shape who you are and become a great leader because
Yes.
ultimately, great leaders, whether they do it because they're high EQ and it's intuitive, or they do it because it's learned and they've tried it out and they've used it successfully and had an epiphany and suddenly realized, wow, this is so powerful. You could see the power of the human factors leadership when you use them and apply them. And, we want you all to do great and be great. So, join us next week for the surprise.
Yes. More surprise human factors of leadership.
That's right. So, hey, thanks for joining the Terry and
Yeah.
Frank show. We'll see you next week. Take care.